Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to What Do You Say, where we talk to remarkable individuals from all walks of life. I'm your co-host, Andrew Termini. If you like what my brother Frank and I are doing here, please like, subscribe, and leave us a review. And remember to hit that notifications button so you can be notified every time we upload some new content. Our next guest is a loving husband and devoted father. He's an advocate for men and a seasoned corporate PR professional. His story unfolds in the backdrop of the 70s and 80s in St. Louis, Missouri, where he navigates the challenges of a divorced household at a young age. Raised in a Jewish family with little connection to God, he found himself facing loneliness, which he filled with an addiction to pornography that persisted for 4 decades. In a surprising twist of faith, he encountered Jesus in the most unlikely of places, a hotel room during a moment of crisis, seeking the services of a prostitute. This encounter triggered a transformation chain of events, breaking him free from addiction, and 6 weeks later, he surrendered his life to Christ, marking the beginning of a profound change. His mission is to help other men break free from porn addiction. He's the author of a book titled Unmasked, documenting his journey, and is actively involved in various projects, including leading the Celebrate Recovery Men's Ministry at the Rock of KC. He contributes to the EPIC project, disrupting the demand for commercial sex exploitation, and he travels to speak on the dangers of sex trafficking. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome Niel Getzlow to What Do You Say?
Welcome to What Do You Say, the podcast that peels back the layers of remarkable individuals to reveal their extraordinary sides and their incredible lives. I'm your host, Frank Termini, and I'm absolutely thrilled to embark on this journey with you. The podcast name's What Do You Say, but that's not how it's said.
How do you say it?
We say.
What do you say?
We say.
What do you say?
We say.
What do you say?
You got it. We say.
Hey.
Neil,
Yes.
we say.
Hey, man, I'm glad we were able to pull this off finally.
Yeah. I'm super excited about this episode. So where are you originally from?
Originally, like when I was born in St. Louis.
So how long did you live in St. Louis?
I grew up there through high school, came out here actually, moved to Kansas City when I was 20 years old. Now I've lived in Kansas City more than I did St. Louis, so I consider Kansas City home now. But
Your family's still in St. Louis?
yeah, they are.
And you said you grew up, born and raised Jewish,
Yeah, that's right.
and you went to a primarily Jewish high school.
I mean, it was a public school, but the area that I lived in was predominantly Jewish.
So what school did you go to?
Is this a St. Louis thing? You're punking me here? No. Parkway North.
Parkway North. All right. And then isn't there a private school that's predominantly Jewish out there?
There's a lot of Catholic schools that were. I was only familiar with the Catholic schools and Christian schools.
So
out
they
there, believe it or
got,
not.
let's see, Cardinal Ritter,
Yeah,
CBC,
yeah.
St. John Vianney,
I lived real close to DeSmet.
Desmet, and then they're like Shaman.
Chaminade, I think.
Is it Chaminade? Is that how you say
I
it?
think so. Yeah,
And is that private,
yeah.
Catholic, or no?
Catholic, I think. Don't hold me to that.
And then, okay. So guys, there's a lot out there.
I didn't. Yeah, in fact, that's all I was familiar with. I didn't realize that.
Am I missing any, Drew?
Not that I could think of.
St. John Vianney,
I'm sure you are, but
CBC,
I think
Cardinal
you
Ritter,
hit some of the.
Chaminade. And you said Desmet?
Yeah,
Okay. And then, so did you go to college in this part of the state?
yeah. I went to KU.
KU.
Yeah, sorry.
Oh my God.
Um,
I pay my taxes in Missouri. Although I want to take my son, I hear a basketball game at Allen's Fieldhouse is just, I mean, it's an experience you got to go to.
it is. It put your KU hatred aside. Like
I don't hate KU. I don't. I will root for KU as long as they're not playing MU.
Yeah.
And I know like they started out having, a good football season this year and last year. And, there were some teams that they've been beating that they haven't beaten in a while. And it seems like they're getting progressive, on the football side. And basketball's always competitive, right? So,
yeah. The field house is great. Like, yeah, it's a really amazing environment when it's done right.
You need to give it to Spencer. I think he's the official DJ for for KU basketball.
Is he?
I think so.
Yeah.
I will say I'm a little old school. So when I first started going to games, it was, late 80s, early 90s. A lot different now because now it has turned into basically a house party. DJs in there, like they turn up the music so loud sometimes, like, what is going on?
Right. But I think it's all part of the atmosphere.
It is. It's a really awesome atmosphere. Yeah. But I will say, like, growing up in St. Louis, I was a Mizzou fan. Like, I'm not afraid to admit that. There's still a soft spot there, although, as I got older, I realized.
Basketball's my son's favorite sport, so I gotta get him to a game out there.
You do.
So, and then you have your own podcast.
I do, yeah.
What's it called?
It's called Unmasked.
So people ask me my theme, and it's like I don't really have one. We have a variety of different types of guests on here. And some stories are really heavy, and there's a lot of weight to them, and some of them are super light, and it's a lot of fun to listen to. They're all I enjoy all the stories, but some of them they're hard stories to hear. Some of them, and so what's your theme of your podcast?
So I'm 85 episodes in, which is hard to believe. So I've been doing it for almost 2 years now, and it started off as because I have a pretty good redemption story. I was bringing people on who had different redemption stories about things that God was doing in their lives, but also because of my history which we'll get to, and some of the things that I did, bringing on people related to human trafficking issues, and sort of got into talk to a lot of sex trafficking survivors, and talk to a lot of sex trafficking advocates.
So I got a guy that he works for the Department of Homeland Security. He's from Kansas City, but now he's living in Washington, D.C. till May of 2024. That's in the process of writing laws for sex trafficking. He wants to make laws more strict on the buyer.
Yes, I 100% support that.
He's trying to make laws more strict on the buyer. So I want to try to get him on here.
Yeah, that'd be huge.
He's actually got to get clearance. So,
really?
Drew, we need to send him our questionnaire. I want to send him our questionnaire because he has to run it by the higher ups to make sure that he can come on.
Yeah.
Yeah. But one of the big things he immediately said is you can't talk about religion, because he said they'll never let him do that. Of course, right? Yeah, of
course.
I know. And then what was the other caveat? Politics. Got to stay away from those two things. I'm like, okay, well, it's tough to talk about laws and not talk about politics.
Right.
Anyway, I'm excited to get him on too.
That's a good one. Yeah.
That'll be an interesting conversation. And he has like, God, I told him, I'm like, man, I do not know how you go to sleep. Knowing what you know and what's going on behind closed doors and seeing what you see, I do not know how you go to sleep at night.
Yeah.
So, and
when we're talking this week, right? Epstein files are in the news again as we're talking. And so, but do you think anything's going to happen with that? No, of course not.
No, I'm going to say, yeah.
No, there's not anything that's going to happen with it. I think, like, I remember when the whole Sandusky story came out.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And I'll never forget this. I was in my office and I had the radio on, and there was 2 people in my office from Iran. Okay? And we're listening to the radio on the whole Jerry Sandusky thing. And these 2 people, they start speaking to each other in Farsi. And their nonverbals had kind of told me something's up. So I said, I got to ask. I said, what are you guys talking about? And they looked at me dead serious and they said, that shit don't happen in our country. Yeah. And you know why? Because they would probably hang them upside down and, drag them throughout the city naked, and who knows what they would do to them.
Sure.
So I don't know. I think we tolerate a little too much in this country.
Well, I think that's what the culture's pushing on everybody.
Yeah.
And a lot of people just go along with it. It's just
like
easier that way.
Everything like, oh, you can't say pedophile. It's a minor attracted person or whatever the hell you get these, I'm like, no, I mean, it's a pedophile. It is what it is.
I feel like sometimes we've just gone into Looney Tune lands.
So there's times I feel like I'm in the Twilight Zone.
We've just reality has just gone out the window and I don't know. I try to figure out, okay, what was the tipping point on where people just lost their minds on this stuff?
I feel like I started to notice it in 2020. It seemed like right when COVID hit is when I started to see this. Now maybe it happened way before that, and I just wasn't paying attention.
I think it did. I just don't think we really noticed it, until we had no choice but to notice it.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, when you're sitting at home paying more attention to the news because you can't go out and do anything, for, I don't know, however many months.
Social media may have ushered in a different kind of thinking, more, let's say, liberal, even though we're not talking about politics.
No, we could talk about whatever we want.
I'm gonna say that
liberal's the exact word, probably.
Yeah.
Liberal's the exact word. Well, and at the end of the day, it's like, say someone like me, I wouldn't consider myself like this huge right-wing Republican. I would have always considered myself moderate, so like right in the middle. And then all of a sudden the left moves way left, which makes me appear, hell, you listen to Bill Maher and he sounds like Rush Limbaugh. All of a sudden Bill Maher sounds like he's Republican, or way more right than I always thought he was.
Yeah, I agree.
You know what I mean? So when the left is making Bill Maher sound right,
Yeah, I consider myself politically homeless, I think is how the term is.
Yeah,
Right?
I would consider myself moderate. I could get into a political discussion and piss everyone in the room off.
Or every listener.
Or every listener, yeah.
Oh, well.
I could end up pissing everyone off, So I want to talk to me about this book.
Yeah, so the book conveniently called Unmasked as well, same title as my podcast. Book came first, Unmasked, Conquering Sexual Sin and Walking in Victory. And wrote it in COVID, in the middle of COVID, because my job was impacted. My wife, Amy, her job was impacted.
What do you do?
I work in corporate communications.
Okay.
So I'm a writer by trade, but my job was impacted at the time. So, and then I dropped this huge bombshell on our well, I didn't, but other people came in and set off a nuclear bomb in our marriage for things that I did, which we'll get into. And so during the course of, the course of 2020, I was like, well, I just felt led to put it on a piece of paper and try to help explain what happened to me, and maybe it will help somebody else.
Sure. I want to get to that, but first, I got to know the transition from Jewish to Christianity.
Ooh, yeah.
And then I got to know, how did that go over in the family?
So here's the thing. I grew up culturally Jewish. I was a secular Jew.
Explain that to me.
I was in it for the jokes and the food. Like that, and that's how my family. There was no we knew what the rituals were. We knew why we celebrated on certain days, but there's no meaning behind it.
Right.
It's just, this is something that we do. Okay.
Right. Ritual, no relationship.
That's 100%. That's what it was.
Got it.
And the most religion I got growing up was every Passover or Easter time would be watching the Ten Commandments movie with my mom. So I got 4 hours of the Bible through the Ten Commandments with Charlton Heston every year. That was the extent of any sort of religious discussion.
So you transitioning to Catholic, your parents were probably like, whatever. Well, not Catholic. I should say Christian.
Yeah, I would say. It is hard because, I say it's as a secular Jew, but there is a certain identity that goes along with being Jewish, and you can see how it's playing out in the world today with what's happening over in Israel and how different people are reacting to the situation. There is an identity that goes along with being Jewish, and while I wasn't religiously Jewish, I would be fiercely Jewish, meaning like if someone, if I were to see something that someone said something about a Jewish person, I would, and this is before I found Christ, I would immediately. It was
Off your
almost like,
chest, you were ready to rock and roll.
yeah. It was almost like it was an early form of identity politics,
Right.
In a way, right? Like you can't talk about Jewish people. You don't know,
Right.
like So it's a dichotomy. It's just a weird thing. But I will say, once I started, the first time I read the Bible was in 2020. You read the whole Old Testament, which, a lot of the old Jews read, but then you get to the New Testament, and basically you realize it's a book written by Jews for the Jews. That's how it hit me. So that for me, the transition to accepting Jesus as the Messiah was easy for me. I told my family, and I gave them all a book and told them about what I did and told them about my new found faith in Christ. And the response was, well, if that's what makes you happy, that's good.
So they were, yeah.
I mean, they didn't
Didn't matter. But what drove the decision?
to follow Christ.
Yes.
Well, that would stem from me being blackmailed by a prostitute who called my wife, and
So it's tough to get into the decision to follow Christ without getting into.
it would not have happened any other way.
So then we got to go back.
We do. We got to go back.
All right. So we have to go back to. So then let's start here. Let's start with. Was it initial promiscuity that transitioned into sex addiction, which then transitioned into porn addiction, or was it, pornography followed by promiscuity, and then I have to also assume that, the pornography made it difficult to have a relationship with, how do I want to say it? I mean,
Just say
a
it.
non-porn star
Yeah.
person, you know what I mean? So someone who's,
Sure.
because let's face it, no normal girl likes what porn stars like.
Porn is not reality.
It's not reality. There you go.
It is absolutely not. And for me, that's where it started, was pornography. I was 10 years old.
10. Okay.
There was a wooded area behind my elementary school, and it was nicknamed the Playboy Forest because we'd ride our bikes there after school, and there'd be these pieces of Playboy magazine all over the ground. So that's how we got first exposed. And and that's like that's where it grabbed hold of my heart, and it just didn't let go.
So it starts at 10.
That's where I first got exposed. And then it gets complicated because that's what everyone has a lot of people have a drug of choice. Maybe it's alcohol, maybe it's drugs, maybe it's food. For me, it was pornography. Like I had a brokenness from abandonment issues when my parents got divorced and not feeling loved and being alone a lot as a teenager. To fill up that loneliness, I looked at porn. And that's that started to rewire my brain, thinking sex equals love. And I thought, and I needed to have sex with someone in order to feel that love. My brain was so messed up from the pornography.
So as you got older, did that lead to sex with multiple partners, promiscuity, emotionless sex?
Again,
all the above.
Yeah, all the above, because I'm constantly seeking out women to have sex with in high school. That's what the relationships were based on. But then you would have.
Is that really much different than any other hormonal male? I mean, because honestly, I didn't have abandonment issues. I was very fortunate. We were very fortunate. My parents were together until our dad died. They never really argued. There was never, anything like that. Yet I was promiscuous as hell. I mean, from the time I was, I'm really embarrassed to say it, but I was 12 years old the first time I had sex. And even more sickening, as I have 3 daughters, the girl was 12 too. So, saying that as a 45-year-old man makes me physically ill.
Right.
But so I was incredibly promiscuous until I really got married,
I mean, and that's
So I guess my question is,
Yeah.
at what point do you kind of distinguish between, hey, boys will be boys, and hey, this is something more deep rooted? And maybe mine was more deep rooted, and I just don't know.
It may be.
Yeah, I mean,
Maybe it was.
you know,
But for me, right when you're single and you're going out and having one night stands, that was, I mean, that right, that's to be expected, and I think that's part of the problem, right? Why the culture says it's okay to do all that stuff, and that's everyone's decision to make. I mean, if I were to look back on it now, I wish I wouldn't have done that. But like it's just.
I'm real conflicted about that, because like sometimes I wonder, would I be the husband I am now had I not done all that playing, quote unquote, in my younger years? Would I have, because sometimes I feel like, oh man, this guy got married at, 23, 24 years old. Now he's out running around on his wife. Right. Where had he played the field a longer time, would he have been more loyal to his spouse? I don't know. Those are just things that go through my head. Like for me personally, is, adultery, which premarital sex falls under that. It's 100% wrong. It's against, everything the Bible tells us to do. Yet I just don't know if I would have been the man I am now had I not done that at a younger age.
Well, I think it's a great thought. It's a thought exercise, right? For me, again, I've got a biblical worldview now, so I look at it as, I think having premarital sex, I don't think that's what God calls us to do.
Sure.
But I just look at my own example. I played around, had slept with many different women growing up through my early 20s, got married, and had multiple affairs on my first wife.
So you were married twice?
Yeah. First one ended in divorce because of an affair. That's all been fueled by pornography.
So was sex your only drug of choice, or was there other things involved that kind of maybe was your X factor, right? So, I know a lot of times with cocaine, for example, if you use cocaine and alcohol, then the liver will metabolize a third drug called cocaine. So then if you use one without the other, your brain's like, I'm missing something, and then you go seek the other drug. So was there something with you that triggered?
So for me, the porn was a gateway drug. Like I believe it or not, and I would justify my actions by saying, well, I don't smoke pot, I don't do hard drugs, I don't drink.
You're rationalizing.
Yeah, so everyone's got a vice. This is my vice.
Yeah,
this is what I need to do to de-stress or whatever. Or so I thought. That's how I rationalized it in my mind. But the porn, ultimately, though, as I got older, had access to more money and to more time. Soon the porn you need more.
That's when you get the prostitution came in.
But it started, you go to adult nightclubs or adult theaters back in, so think about the time here, when I'm in the 90s, mid 90s in Kansas City, you had a lot of adult entertainment venues, theaters around town.
They did?
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know anything about that.
Me neither. What?
There was one on Main Street, like 31st and Main.
Are you talking about like strip clubs?
They're a little bit different than strip clubs. But there's like a stage, and the women would come out and take off their clothes on a big stage, but you had like seats that looked like it's like you're walking into a movie theater, and
right. Okay.
Women are coming out. Anyways, then it graduated to strip clubs, and then from there it led to, for me it was picking up a Pitch magazine at the time, Pitch newspaper.
Yeah.
When it was printed, and you had numbers in the back of the publication. That's where I found women who were advertising selling sex.
Right.
And
okay.
that's where it started.
So how old were you when you first got married?
24. First time, 24.
And then how long did it last?
10 years.
So you last 10 years, and how many affairs?
One official one that ended the marriage, but had encounters with people that I had paid money to.
Right. So okay, but here's my other thing, and I'm not trying to justify anything.
Yeah.
But I just like, if your drive to have sex is incredibly strong, not yours, people.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
A person's drive to have sex is incredibly strong. Okay. And if you're not getting what you want at home, you're probably going to seek that someplace else. So do you think maybe, was there ever where part of the problem was the person you were married, you and her weren't sexually compatible, which then drove you to seek sex elsewhere?
Here's what I would say to that. And like I mentioned earlier, pornography is not reality. You would be surprised how your mind changes if the only person you saw naked was your wife. That has changed my attitude on the intimacy I have with my current wife, Amy. She's the only
Say this again. Help me understand.
She's the only person I'm looking at naked ever. I'm not looking at pornography. I'm not watching movies that have nudity in it. When my focus is completely on my wife and she's the only one that I'm seeing like that, it changes how you look at it. For me, it changed how I look at her.
You're more sexually attracted to her.
100%. 100%. Because what I've learned is, and I've talking this out with other people, and then talking to, women who've been in prostitution, that kind of thing. Like the pornography, it goes two ways. One, it puts in my mind how I'm objectifying women when I see those images. What I found interesting was a survivor told me, she's like, she grew up and looked at porn. For her, it taught her that it's okay to be used by men like this, which I thought was just fascinating, sort of looking at it from the other side of the conversation. So she's getting taught, hey, this is how I should be treated by men as a sex object. And the porn was telling me,
this is how you should treat them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it just sort of fuels on each other.
So you're buying into a false reality.
Yes, 100%.
You try to carry that over into your marriage, and like you were saying, do you think that it's something that your wife's not giving you? Well, the expectation has changed when your mind starts to.
Well, and then really, so like as soon as you stop looking at it, now all of a sudden your wife's enough.
Well, I think your brain, it takes time, but your brain does heal.
Right.
Your brain does heal. Those synapses or whatever you want to call them in there start to kind of remap to maybe where they should be. And again, I would say that the intimacy in our marriage is stronger than it ever has been.
Well, and when I initially started hearing about porn addiction, I would always kind of scuffle.
I did too. Oh, I'd never believe.
Because I'm like, really?
Right.
This is a real thing, Yeah. But I don't know. My brain must just not work that way, because all the experimentation I did with drugs, some I did way more than I should have. I never really had a hard time when it was time to quit stopping. So for me, maybe I just don't have that chemical makeup. So it's difficult for a non-addict to understand an addict, obviously.
Yeah.
Right. So, and that's really what we're dealing with here but do you think that this has been going on, not just with you, but with people for a long time? Or do you think this is an epidemic that's just starting with, the ease with which you can get it now? Like here in the 90s, you'd have to go to a grocery store, go to a liquor store, go buy a magazine. Now you just get online and it's right there at your fingertips.
Yeah, certainly that is accelerating things, right? Kids today, and here's someone I'll give a plug for who you should have on the show, is Russ Tuttle from Stop Trafficking Project.
I think he's been at
he's come to the Rock a few times and presented. He is a wealth of information. He goes into schools and talks to kids and parents about the dangers of being online and sharing sexually explicit images with each other. And when people are, kids are trading all that in, they're desensitized. They're getting it right on their phone instantly from the time they get a phone. They're exposed to it,
which is why I won't let my kids have one yet.
it's hard to guard. You can, it's hard to guard against it. You can't.
I mean, you had to go to Playboy Forest. Is that what you call it?
Yeah, right.
I mean, that's, you had to go to Playboy Forest, and if it snowed, there was no Playboys. You bring a shovel out.
Well, let me put a pin in that and just tell you that one of the things that also sort of messed me up was the fact that my mom had 2 giant stacks of Playboy and Penthouse magazines on either side of her bed as I was growing up. But that was the culture. Like, that was the 80s. It wasn't just about the pictures in there. For me, it was, but there were actually what people considered at the time thoughtful news articles and interviews in there that people would read just for the articles, I guess.
They have some good articles. they really, I mean, they do have some good articles in there. But okay, so
I told you, man, there's a lot of layers to peel back on this one.
yeah. So you get so throughout your first marriage, do you know you have a problem at all? What are you attributing your decision making to?
So I didn't really recognize it as a problem, and I didn't think I had a problem.
You just think.
Now I'm going to say this, and I know it's going to sound kind of crazy to say and to think that and to justify my actions, but this is legitimately what I thought, because this happens in the mid 90s when this is going, when I'm married and this is going down.
How old are you?
I'm 53.
Oh, okay. All right. So you're 8 years. Okay.
Yeah. Bill Clinton.
Right.
To me, like, that was a green light to say, well, if he's if he's doing this, right? Like, again, I'm just assuming my role as being a man, right? And I'm like, if that's his outlet, then that's my outlet.
Yeah.
And that's how I justify. I mean, seriously, that's how I justified it.
Yeah, I get it.
Because that's what he was role modeling.
Yeah, that was, I didn't really ever think about it then. I used to just laugh and giggle and be like, yeah. I like Bill Clinton now,
Right.
But
right.
I didn't know anything. I was, 13, 14 years old when that whole deal went down.
Yeah.
And then I'm thinking, why not a movie star, something, like Kennedy aims for Marilyn Monroe. And,
so here's one thing I learned going through this that for me kind of put clarity as to why I was making all these horrible, horrible decisions with my life. So when I got to the other side of this and confessed everything to my wife, went to counseling, of course, right? And talked to a counselor. He was a faith-based counselor, but the first question he asked me, which was just such a powerful question, he was like, what's the first thing you had to remember learning to do as a little kid? And for me, that answer, like the light bulb went off. It's like, I had to learn how to be alone. Because my parents got divorced, because we moved away from the school I was going to for all my life to a school I knew nobody at. My siblings were older. They were already out of the house. I moved in with my mom to an apartment. Now she has to work 40 hours a week. So she's now gone a lot. So I had to be alone. And what did I do with that loneliness? That's where the pornography came in. And to me, that's how I got trained to feel better about myself, to say, okay, like just to fill up for those feelings for my heart to feel good. But what I learned was that it created a shame cycle, because I knew it was wrong looking at this stuff, right? Like I knew there was something immoral about it. And I'd look at the porn, it'd make me feel good for a little bit, but right after I'd be done looking at it, I'd instantly feel incredibly guilt, shame. And then my next thought would be, well, this is why nobody loves me. This is why I'm alone. And then you go back to the top of the cycle.
The loneliness, the porn.
And it just spins around. And then that manifested itself in strip clubs, manifested itself with prostitutes. Like it just spun around.
There had to be a good portion of where it's not really about self-gratification.
No. Yeah. It just became, I don't even know how to describe it, because a lot of times in these moments looking for these women, it was your brain would just go on autopilot. Like it was almost like I was stepping outside of my body, and my body's moving and my brain's making these decisions, and I just was helpless.
Man. So you get married. So how did your first wife catch you having the affair?
The person I was having an affair with left a voicemail message. No, wait. we had caller ID that was tied to our TV. I can't remember. This must have been, I don't know, remember when they did that. In the 90s, they did that. You could pull up your caller ID on your TV.
I remember that.
My first wife was out of town, and when she came back, she looked at the caller ID and saw the number and called it. And as I look back on the now, it's like but that, that's the hard part. Like I didn't put any effort or energy into the marriage. You know, so it was this is my way, and I was too chicken to, and I'm not I'm not religious at the time, right? I'm considered myself pretty much an atheist during this time. So I was too chicken to say, "Hey, I want a divorce." So this was my easy way out. I'm going to get caught.
You wanted to get caught.
Yeah. Looking back on it now, yeah.
Yeah. You didn't even care.
No.
So you get caught, you get divorced. How long are you divorced for before you meet Amy? Amy's was your wife, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I would say it was probably 3 or 4 years.
So you go 3-4 more years still. You're still, looking at porn. You're still being promiscuous. You're still doing whatever you're doing.
Yeah.
So you're going into the relationship with Amy knowing you're broken at this point.
Yeah. Well, no. Well, I mean, I didn't realize I was broken necessarily, but I was definitely, being promiscuous, and it was just a series of one night stands for those 3 years. That's all it was. I didn't really have any. Amy would have been my first serious relationship.
At any point when you were navigating through your divorce, did you say, okay, I need to step away from this pornography?
Never crossed my mind.
So the same habits just kind of continued on.
Yeah. Well, yeah, they did. And when I started dating Amy, I'd say that probably eased a little bit, right? I was in a new relationship, so things were strong. And, but there was a moment, though, that when those things came back pretty strong.
Yeah.
And
what was the moment?
So 3 months after we got married, Amy sits me down and she's like, "Neil, I'm a born again Christian."
You're like, oh shit.
3 months. You're telling. It's like the scene from Wedding Singer with Adam Sandler. I'm like, this would have been great information to know 3 months ago. Like, what do I do with that? And as again, this is where the Jewish identity comes in. Even though I had no idea what it meant, all I knew was Jesus was Jewish, but I also knew that most Jews do not like Jesus, and so I was so that feeling of, I know it's crazy because and Amy changed, right? And this is what happens when you become a new believer.
So Amy was not really a practicing Christian when you guys got married.
No, she grew up Catholic, but she was definitely not practicing at all.
So what changed for her? That's probably whole another story.
So as I got older, I did drink a lot and smoked marijuana and did all that stuff, and we celebrated all that stuff together for the first few years when we were dating, like drinking, smoking, premarital sex, just out partying and having a good time. When she got saved, that all went away for her. Like she was not.
What?
She just changed. She didn't like to go out and drink anymore. And she got shook. She got a new heart. That's what Jesus gives you, a new heart. She has a new heart with new desires.
What was the catalyst for that with her?
She says that.
I mean, you don't just come home and say, "I'm a born again Christian." I mean, that's
there was there were some things happen as we were getting married. I wrecked her car. We were trying to buy a house. She found a book, and the thing that I think motivated her, she found a book in her in the break room of where she worked, 23 Minutes in Hell. And she read that book, and she said it just scared her. And from there, she started just praying about it. And 3 months later, she started going to the Rock.
And so she's becomes a practicing Christian.
Yes.
Her heart changes. Her mind changes.
Yeah.
She come home, discloses this to you 3 months after you just got married.
Yeah.
So now the girl that you're partying with, drinking with, smoking weed with, having sex with, doing all this with, comes home, and no longer does she want to drink. No longer does she want to party. No longer does she want to smoke. And then there you are.
Yeah.
And you respond how?
It brought up a lot. It brought up the old feelings I had as a kid of being abandoned, And again, this is my warped mind, right?
Right. This
is
isn't truth. These are lies.
Yes, this is not rational thinking by any stretch.
Yeah.
But that's what I was thinking. I'm alone again, and that's that hole in the heart kicked in. It opened back up, and I'd probably say 9 months to a year later, I'm back to looking at pornography consistently. And again, from there, it just morphed along the way until probably 3 years into our marriage. I started, that's when I started to be more active in searching online sites to meet women.
Okay, so now let's get into
it.
Let's get into the oh crap.
Yeah.
So you're looking at porn, and now you're starting to be promiscuous again.
Yeah.
And
I want to point this out too, just to show you how much porn was messing with my brain. Where do you think I was looking? Where do you think I got most of my porn from?
It's got to be your phone.
It was from my phone, but what would you think I was looking at?
Like what site?
Yeah.
It's Pornhub.
No.
No?
Twitter.
No shit.
Yeah.
Huh.
I could search for anything on there and get 2-minute clips of every piece of porn video out there all through. Now, it may have been linked back to whatever porn sites out there, but I didn't have to leave Twitter to get this. I could just watch it right there in my browser. And that's what I did. And like, it was almost like it just was nonstop, right? Like I just couldn't stop watching it. And it literally desensitized me to the point where I was having trouble, being intimate with Amy.
That's what I was going to say. So did you get yourself to the point where now Amy is not even attracted to you at all? Excuse me, attractive to you, not attracted to you, but attractive, where you don't even want to have sex with Amy now?
Or if I did, I'm trying to act out what I'm seeing.
And she's just like, what the hell is this shit?
Yeah. Yeah.
Who do you think you're having sex with right now?
Pretty much. Yeah. But again, for me, it was hard. It was hard to be intimate from a performance standpoint, because I needed that mainline drug in there to work, and it just didn't. So like I said, it was a really bad spot.
Yeah,
and I assume every time you open up, I did not know this about Twitter, about pornography being on Twitter, but I'm assuming when you open up your Twitter account, you're getting inundated with it, regardless whether you like it or not.
We have to follow the right people on there to get it. But if you just search, and you could, I don't even know can't even remember how I got onto some of these profiles, but you just start going down the rabbit hole, and pretty soon, I had to memorize these, because I never saved them. I never followed these accounts. I just had them in my mind. So if I ever got caught, then maybe it wouldn't look so obvious to find the porn. But that was just a minor concern, really, looking back on it now, for some of the other stuff that I was doing. So all that led me to, in February of 2020, going to Chicago on a business trip, and meeting someone in a hotel room in downtown Chicago on Thursday morning before I was going to go home that night. And I don't even know why I did this. I usually go out for a run in the morning. Here, I just said, no, I'm gonna go find someone. I did. I went to this woman's hotel room. All of the red flags, all of my spidey senses were going off. Every bell, every alarm possible was ringing,
telling you don't do this.
Do not do this. And I was like, ignored them all.
So tell me tell me the red flags.
So it was weird. The woman would not.
Was she an undercover cop?
No. She would not come downstairs to meet. You had to have an elevator key to go up to her room. She wouldn't come downstairs, so she put her elevator key in one of the elevators, and I had to wait and see which elevator opened up with the key on the floor. That's red flag number one. When I got to her room, she was just acting very peculiar. It was just off, like just something. She's definitely preoccupied. There's something else going on in this room or with her, or something's happening. Again, I just ignored all that, because I'm like, I'm just going to go what I came for and get out.
Right.
And so as I'm getting ready to leave this hotel room, there's a second bedroom there, and the door opens up, and a Large gentleman walks out. Looks like an offensive lineman from the Chicago Bears. He was dressed in drag, which I'm still to this day can't figure out why he was dressed in drag, but he was. And but he comes out. He's holding his cell phone in his.
He blackmailed you.
It had Amy's contact information and Facebook picture on there. He's
How
like,
the hell did he have that?
they're good. I have no idea. I use my real phone number, right? So they have me. They can find me, and now they start. Dude, you can find anything pretty darn quick.
Man.
Your info is out there, whether you want to like it or not. He found Amy's pretty quick, and
What'd they want?
he's like, "Well, you're going to have to pay us more money, or we're going to call your wife." So I got out of there probably about $900 later. But as I can get out the door, and I'm like sprinting to the elevator, and I can hear the door open up behind me, and they're yelling, "Hey, you're going to have to pay us more money, or we're going to call your wife." And but this is why I called my book Unmasked, because so I went about my day. I put my mask on, and I shoved what just happened deep inside me, like I had done with everything for the past 40 years. Nobody has ever known that I was a porn addict. Nobody ever knew that I was visiting all these women. Nobody. I put the mask on, had great business meetings. Amy picked me up from the airport on that Thursday night. Didn't know anything. They hadn't called her. So I'm thinking, okay, I've avoided the worst. Life's going to go on. Great. And then on Sunday, March 1st, 2020, 9:30 p.m., my cell phone starts blowing up from text messages from this couple. And they're like, "Hey, you're going to have to pay us more money in 15 minutes or we're going to call your wife." And I just I'm like, why would they call? Like, clearly this isn't the first time they've done anything like this. So if they call Amy, I'm not going to pay them any more money. So surely they're smarter than that, right? But after 15 minutes, and I didn't do anything, then I could hear Amy's cell phone going off upstairs, and she's charging out of her bedroom down the hallway to my office and barges in, and she's like, "Are you cheating on me?" And I said to her, and I did what any addict would do at the time, right? I just lied.
Wasn't me.
No, I said, no, this is the first time I'd ever done anything like this. They're blackmailing me. I can't believe, this is unbelievable, and I'm so sorry. But really, I was more sorry that I was caught than I was sorry for the hurt and pain that I was bringing into our marriage. So that, think of the timing of this too, right? So March 1st, and then 2 weeks later, COVID. So now
So when you go into this place in Chicago,
yeah.
the girl doesn't have sex with you at all?
There was activity there that took place.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
All right. Man, oh man. And then
But I will say, but that's one of the things that she was distracted, was messing with her phone. So while she was messing with her phone, what she was doing was taking pictures of the encounter. So those pictures ended up on Amy's phone. So there was no backing out of, there's no denying it, right? Like, I'm caught, but I lied, and
she certainly couldn't. Amy couldn't have believed you. She had to know.
Well, she had, and she says now, after all this came out, she said she had a feeling for some time that something wasn't right. Sure. She just couldn't put her finger on it, and I said, "Why didn't you ever confront me on it?" She's like, "Well, I was thought that you'd probably, if I did, you probably would delete everything off your phone or off your computer, and I never would know the truth." Wow. Which is true. So that set off a really interesting 6-week stretch of life.
So are you relieved now at this point again that you're finally caught?
No, there was no relief there because I didn't admit to anything.
So you still don't admit to it?
No,
when do you finally come clean with Amy?
So okay, this is where the God part comes in, and so I would say that couple in Chicago was a hammer from God, right? That's hammer number one. Hammer number two happened about 6 weeks later. This was April 13th, 2020, a Monday, and so these addictions are still there. And I had an arrangement with someone in Kansas City, a woman who I had set up, making an appointment with to go see her. I did that all on my laptop and sent the messages on there. Now, of course, we're both furloughed from our jobs because of COVID. So she's home with me. So I 100% always lock my computer whenever I go, whenever I leave the house, because I know if Amy gets on there, she's going to see, what I've been texting. So I leave the house, and Amy will be the first to admit this, and you probably know this, Drew. Like, she has no idea how to use technology, and so she couldn't find her way around a computer if she wanted to. And so that's why 15 minutes after I left the house to go meet this woman, Amy somehow, number one, the computer was unlocked. Number two, she figured out a way to take screenshots of what was on my computer and now send them to me via text. She's like, what is going on? And of course, I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. So I turned around immediately, didn't go to this person. And
So you're on the way
I was on the way.
to a regular.
Yes.
Okay.
And I get home and I don't even remember what I told her because it was just junk. Like, it was like my life was finally, it was completely unspooling right there. Like, I have lost control of the narrative. There's no coming back from this, so I don't know what to do. And that's when Amy said to me that Monday night, she's like, there's only one way for you to save this marriage. You need to ask God for help. And because, mind you, Amy had been going to the Rock of KC for 8 years prior to this moment. So she had been praying for me to have a moment, to have a saving moment for 8 years.
How long were you guys married up to this point?
We would have been just under 10 years.
Okay.
And so the next morning, Tuesday, April 14th, I wake up. Amy had left. Obviously.
It's your birthday.
Yeah.
Hey, there you go. Amy left the house. I don't know where she went. She was gone when I woke up. And so I was like, well, you know what? I've got nothing. I don't know what else to do, so I'm going to pray. First time in my life. I just said, God, I don't know what I'm doing. My life is completely unraveling. I need help. Like, help me. If there is help out there, give me a sign. And as soon as I finish that prayer, the garage door pops open and it's Amy. Because Amy really is the key to this whole story.
Amy is she is a remarkable person.
Well,
yes. I mean, for someone to talk the talk is easy, but walking the walk and, genuinely in her heart being able to forgive this, she's a remarkable human being.
Yeah, she is, and she doesn't even realize it, which is
Too humble to realize it.
Yeah, she is. But so she came home from the grocery stores where she was, and I said, "Gosh, I prayed. I really want to work on our marriage. Can we do that?" And of course, she's like just completely confused. And she's like, okay, I guess so. Like, she doesn't know what's going on. And then I felt convicted from God. He's like, it's time. It's time to tell Amy everything. And I sat Amy down and told her what I'd been doing for the better part of most of our marriage. And
that had to be really liberating.
Two things happened. Number one, it was the best I felt ever in my entire life. I could stand up straight. Every lie, everything I had done, I had finally unburdened. I took my mask off. Everything was out on the table. I had nothing else to hide. And which very liberating. But now I'm looking at Amy wondering, okay, what's coming next? Is this over? Like, what's the deal? And what she said next changed our lives. She said, Niel, Jesus forgave me for my sins. How can I not forgive you for yours? I forgive you. And that was the moment that changed everything. I have been porn free since April 13th, 2020. I have not been tempted to stray outside of my marriage since then. I mean, let's be honest. April 13th, 2020.
We got to get Amy on this podcast.
Yeah.
God. Because I remember hearing about this.
Yeah.
I remember you guys talking at The Rock. And I remember putting my arm around my wife, and she looked at me and said, don't even think about it, buddy. She said, don't, not, because, I was teasing her. And She said, don't even think about it. And I mean, that takes an enormous amount of, I don't even know what the word is.
Yeah, I can't.
you, Drew?
I can't even think of what you would call that. Somebody she at the speed at which she forgave you is uncanny.
It's uncanny. And hold on, not to just verbally say it, but to in her heart, like, does she ever bring it up? And
Well, here's the thing. Here's the thing. Okay, right? Her forgiveness was more for her sake than it was for mine.
it always is. People get that confused.
Her forgiveness helped push aside the bitterness that could have been there, which would have prevented us from healing our marriage. What it did not do, and I got to be very clear about this, it did not take away any accountability and responsibility I had to be a new man and to show her that I was changed and to show her that I was really, truly repentant for what I was doing.
I think the biggest thing with forgiveness, the biggest misconception, is people think it's for the other person.
And it's just a get out of jail free card.
It's not.
No.
It's not. Forgiveness has nothing to do with the other person.
Yeah.
The best analogy I ever seen on forgiveness, or lack thereof, is it was, you know what? She's I can't think of her name. She's a big time priest in the, I don't know if it's a priest. She always wears a priest's outfit, but she's in the LGBTQ community, and she was talking about forgiveness and how when you don't forgive an act, that act has you tied up like a rope, and that act can take you anywhere it wants to. And that's all forgiveness is doing, is like taking a knife and cutting the rope so you're no longer attached to the act anymore. And now it can't take you down these rabbit holes, and can't take you to bitterness, and can't take you to shame, and can't take you to frustration anymore, because you're no longer attached to it. Under no circumstances does it have anything to do with the other person.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, and I would say, so that word you were looking for is obedience. She had an incredible obedience to God. And you just think about the ripples that made. So it changed. Obviously, she's obedient to God's first calling to her to give her life to Jesus. Then her obedience led to me getting saved. And my obedience to that, where are the ripples going? Like, I'm having conversations with one of my sons about Jesus now, which was impossible to even comprehend. He's not there yet. Maybe he will. I mean, that's up to God.
How old is he?
He's 20. Like, you don't know where the ripples are going. The number of men that have come up to me just at the Rock from saying, after that time I talked about it with Amy on stage, that says, I've got an issue with porn. Like, it's a huge issue inside church. And if it's a big issue inside the church, imagine what it's like outside of the church.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, here, sex. I mean, it's a huge drive, and and if the drive is suppressed, not only does it grow, but it grows perverse. I mean, it's just the way it is.
Well, and I think that's but I think that's what happens when you fill up how are you filling up your mind? Right. And that's what I learned that I had to do. Like, so when you want to lose weight, what do? You stop eating junk food, right? You get rid of the chips, candy, cookies, all that stuff. What do you do when you need to get your mind right? Now, I don't think we have a conversation enough in this culture about getting rid of the junk food of your mind. Instead of me focusing all my attention on porn, on Netflix, on sports, on everything that the culture has to offer, I was focusing my mind on God and filling up on God and going to church and meeting new people and having fellowship with other like-minded individuals. The more that you fill up on something, the more you're going to focus on. And I think because this culture is so hypersexualized, that's what people get focused on, and that's what drives the drive. If you change your mindset and what you're focusing on, I believe that's going to change how you live it out.
Well, and I think your mind and heart are so connected,
or disconnected. I think at times, I think that there's there's a connection that's required in order for you to kind of, when you're doing wrong, you're suppressing what your heart is feeling, shame, guilt, and regret,
Well, that's what'll stem the shame. When there's that, what's the word I'm looking for? Oh, gosh darn it. When they're not in alignment, your heart and your mind, your mind is doing one thing and then your heart's saying to do something totally different,
Well, that's kind of like, I think Niel touched upon that when he's going up in the elevator. His heart and his mind are definitely in conflict.
Yeah.
You're getting things that your heart's telling you, this ain't right. But your mind's telling you,
Screw it, you're fine.
I'm just
ignore it.
Yeah.
ignore it. We're going to go ahead and do this and
Fire, ready, aim.
Right. Yeah. Right.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. So, all right. So this is her response to what you did is ultimately what was kind of like this jolt for you. It sounds like.
Yeah, and I look back on it now, and I believe that and again, this for me to think about who's telling you this. A former Jewish atheist, middle-aged, cranky man is going to sit here and tell you that was more than just Amy saying, I forgive you. That was Jesus. I absolutely 100% believe
He used her.
Yes, with all my heart, that was the moment. I 100% believe that.
Yeah.
I can't explain it. I just, and all you, and
And to someone who's not spiritually discerned,
Yeah.
they're going to listen to it and say, bullshit.
yeah, they're going to say, and I will say there are people in our lives who believe 4 years later that I'm still faking it.
No, you ain't faking that.
In 4 years?
No,
Yeah, no.
no.
After a book and 4 years of this, it's hard to. I cannot fake this for that long.
Yeah, no,
I'm
you're not
sorry.
gonna. You're gonna fail, especially when it
Yes.
comes to sex. I mean,
100. Yes,
you're gonna fail.
Yes, there's so many opportunities to get in trouble.
Yeah, it's too easy.
I literally have to. I do that verse. Take every thought captive. Like that is like tattooed in my brain. I literally have to take every thought captive. If I feel like my brain might be taking me down a dangerous path, I've got to nip it in the bud, or it will take me there.
Sure. Well, and you have to have an open line of communication with Amy, probably.
Yes.
And if you're struggling with that, you'd be able to open up and have a conversation.
That's the amazing thing, right? I have zero temptation to look at that stuff. Just zero.
No, that's
It's amazing. And I don't know. Like sometimes I ask, like, why? Like, God, why do I have zero? Because I know there are guys who want to break free and can't, and it's hard.
I always wonder, what allows some people to, defeat that giant, not just porn, but addiction, any addiction.
Yeah.
And some people, they can't defeat it.
Yeah.
And, because at the end of the day, when you look at the 12-step program, the first thing is to always recognize that the first step is recognizing that there's a power bigger than you, right?
Yeah.
And they don't ever say Christianity. There's people that, that looks different for everyone. But
Yeah.
I think there's clearly there's something to that, and I think no one can defeat the giant, right? I think it's, when you're looking at the David and Goliath story, everyone thinks that they're David, right? If you ever read Louis Giglio's book, The Goliath Must Fall.
I haven't. No, I need to.
You should read it. It's pretty cool.
Okay.
But he really breaks that story down and how, everyone can identify the giant in their life, but everyone always thinks they're David. So they sit there and they try to beat that problem. They try to beat their addiction, and you can't.
Yeah, that's the thing that I've learned. Like, you can go to recovery and you can put a fresh coat of paint on your addiction, and do the things that you need to do without God. Put the fresh coat of paint on it, and you'll be okay for a little bit. Eventually, that paint will wear off. For me, with Jesus providing the healing, that's not a fresh coat of paint. That is a brand new heart. I changed the condition on my heart for me, and that broke me free and clear permanently.
And kicking the demons out
Yeah.
isn't the same as inviting Jesus in.
Right.
Kicking the demons out's only,
You push them back for a little bit.
it'll push them back for a little bit, but then That's why relapses are usually stronger, right? Because then they come back with more of them, you know? And once again, that's going to sound stupid to the atheist or someone who's not spiritually discerned. But I mean, here, listen, no one can deny the relapse is always worse.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, the relapse is always worse. Half the time, it probably kills them. You know, when we're not dealing with porn, when you're dealing with just addiction.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, it's usually the nail in the coffin. And so that's, in my opinion, because it's very much demonic and there's very much a spiritual component to it. And that's why the people who beat it, you know, people will roll their eyes and say, oh, they found God. Yeah, there's no other way you're beating that.
Yeah.
There's just not.
I don't think so. And, you know, and that's the other thing too, is that I don't think that, like, I think people have a misconception about religion and about God. Like, this does not make us perfect at all. I am far from perfect. I have still so many things that I need to work on. There's still anger issues that I have, anxiety issues, things that I struggle with, that I will always struggle with.
You're broken. You live in a fallen world.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, but it doesn't necessarily fix that, but it helps me. But now I have tools to deal with it.
But is anyone completely fixed? I mean, come on, let's face it.
No.
I mean, there's a reason why he had to get crucified on the cross.
That's right.
There's a reason why he had to do that, because we were all going to miss the mark.
Yeah.
You know, everyone's going to miss the mark. No matter how good you are, you're going to miss the mark.
Yep.
So that's, you know, I try not to, you know, beat myself up over, even though I do sometimes, because let me tell you something. You're looking at the biggest adult fit thrower in the world. He'll tell you, I'm terrible. And as I'm doing it, I will know that it's a bad decision and do it anyway. You know, my kids will tell you, I'm terrible when it comes to, you know, the adult fit throwing.
Well, here's the great thing though about being transformed. Like, my recognition of some of the mental struggles that I have, it used to be days. So I would be angry for days and I would take it out on the world around me, but the people that were closest to me, like Amy. Now I can recognize that I've cut that down from like 3 or 4 days down to maybe 30 minutes to an hour, where I'm like, okay, this is dumb. I need to go apologize to Amy for like this. So instead of stewing on it, I'm able to get it out right away.
Yeah.
And the great thing is she can recognize it on me instantly. She's like, I walk into the house from work and she'll be like, look at me. She's like, what's wrong? She's like, she can see it. And I'm like, nothing. Like, it's the old tapes coming out. I'm like, and then it makes me mad at myself. So I get more angry. And then a couple hours later, I'm like, okay, I'm so dumb.
No, I get like that too. You know, I mean, it happened to me yesterday. Like my whole morning, I don't know if it was a man or a woman, but they cut me off.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm like, I swear, please let me catch up to this lady. And I'm going 85 miles an hour on 152 heading west. And I'm like, please, I just want to flip her off. I just want to flip her. And I don't even know if it's like, I'm saying her, but it could have been a man. I don't know what they were, but they were going. I'm like, how fast is this person going? You know, I'm going 90 miles an hour on 152. She finally got off an Ambassador. I'm like, damn it, you know, because I would have had my whole body hanging out the window. You know,
here's a good exercise for you. I've started to do this over the past few months, and it's hard. But my office is in Overland Park. I go there a couple times a week, and so I have to take 435 on the east side of Kansas City, which is a nightmare, down to Overland Park. And I only use the right lane. And it is the most torturous test of patience you will ever, but like, I'm starting to get better. Like, because I have to give up control, and it's like, I don't care about that guy going 70, 80, 90 miles an hour. Like, I'm not in a race. Why do I want to get to work any faster? Just enjoy the drive. Let's enjoy the music we're listening to. Enjoy your thoughts, and just.
I strictly drive in the left-hand lane.
I'm always in the left-hand lane. Here, one time, and I should know this, because here, I'll tell you this. On the way to weights, last year, it's 5:30 in the morning, okay? I'm in the middle lane on I-35 heading south. I get in the right lane. I don't even remember why, but all of a sudden I see this guy start flying up on me. And I'm like, I couldn't cut him off. I had 100 yards between he and I. He's flying up on me, gets over, and then literally like tries to run me off the road. So I'm like, this son of a bitch. I'm like, and it's dark. So I'm like, please let it be a guy. Please let it be a guy. He gets off on Vivian Road. I follow him. I get off on Vivian Road with him. He takes a left. He goes into Quick Trip. I'm like, please let this be a guy. I'm lighting him up. Well, it was a guy. And he got out of the car and had a cannon on him. I'm like, where the hell did he hide that thing, you know? So naturally, I just peel out and just take off. And, you know, I mean, it shook me up bad. Well, yesterday when this happened, I'm like, remember, Frank, remember what happened last time? And I'm like, I'm going 90 trying to catch this person, you know, like an idiot. But they were going faster than me, and they got off in Ambassador, and I had to keep going west.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm going to say that, you know, as a fireman, a great deal of accidents happen out of road rage.
I believe it.
And texting. The combination of the two. Those are probably your two biggest reasons for accidents.
And I'm seriously like, I want to email one of the reporter and just be like, and maybe you know this, like, have traffic accidents in Kansas City gotten worse since COVID? Like, I really don't know if it's just society in general, but I feel like people are driving faster, more distracted, more angry, and it's causing, like, there's almost not a time I can drive either south or north on the way to or from work and not run into an accident or some sort of mayhem.
Well, it's definitely seasonal with people not changing their tires. That's one thing which causes accidents. But I think because you're exposed to high traffic times and our city's getting more densely populated, I mean, I can tell you over the last 15 years, there's more accidents we run, but I think people are more distracted.
Yeah.
And more densely populated than
Well, I think there's going to have to be something with these phones where there could be it should like turn off maybe if it detects that the car's on. Something. I don't know. There's probably a way that they can do it.
Missouri finally passed a law against the texting and driving, but
It doesn't stop anyone.
it's not going to stop anybody because the police department is so they're short staffed. You know, they're blacked out. You know, a great deal of the time. So it's like, are they really going to take the time to say, "Oh, you were on your phone," and stop you? I just don't think so.
I don't ever text and drive. I'll just call. I'll say I'm driving. I can't text.
Right.
Let's just talk. Let's talk. You know, and I'm not texting and driving. You know, so
I think one of the biggest solves is possibly self-driving cars. Then we're all going at the same pace. But
true. They already have some cars that do that, don't they?
oh yeah, I mean the Teslas.
I thought I saw a commercial the other day where there was I thought it was a truck.
I mean, I think that could solve some issues, but then you're going to find more distracted drivers.
Yeah.
Because
Then they're going to pay zero attention.
yeah, I mean, if this car's driving me, what do I need to pay attention for? Let me space out. I got to get shit done before I get to work. You know,
I think that's kind of scary.
it's kind of scary. We're not there yet, but
No.
I could see that being an issue.
Well, because I mean, at the end of the day, if you're going to have one self-driving car and you're going to have somebody else manually controlling a car, that can cause issues, right? Not less I'm assuming the self-driving car can detect a crash and brake for you. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, it'll detect.
Yeah, but is it going to be able to detect? Hey, it's a weather situation and I can't slam on my brake because then I'm just going to slide even more.
It does.
Really?
Yeah.
So then what's it do? Like pump the brake or something?
The speed and braking will adjust to the weather conditions.
Really?
Yeah.
Because you can't slam on your brake in the ice, right? Isn't that where you got to pump the brake?
Well, we have anti-lock brakes now, so if you slam on your brakes and you're sliding, you're gonna feel that vibration in your brake pedal. So it's already doing it for you.
Got it.
But back in the day, before they had anti-lock brakes, you'd slam on your brakes and they would lock up.
And you just start sliding.
You just start sliding.
Yeah. I still pump my brakes a lot of times in the ice.
Yeah, I mean, you can do it too. Those are just larger pumps, but I mean, obviously, if you were to slam on it, it's not going to let you lock them.
So with the brakes, do you supposed to turn into the slide or away from the slide?
That's a good question, Frank. I usually go by feel.
You just feel it out. You just feel it out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we may need a driver's ed class. So there's our tangent. There you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
You're welcome.
So now so at what point do you feel in your and Amy's relationship that, because initially Amy says, yes, I forgive you.
Yeah.
But at what point, I got to think there was skepticism for you.
Oh, there's skepticism for both of us. Like it probably, I would say it probably took a little over a year for the anxiety for both of us to probably go away where it's just, you don't even notice it. But when this first happened, and even after I gave my life to Christ, like, this is still relatively raw, right? And so she became a forensic detective and started going through all, because I had not given, up until that point, she didn't have any access to my phone or computer. So I gave her all that. She could go onto it at any time. And like, there's stuff on there that I had no idea was still on there. Pictures or messages like from years ago that were on there.
Opens up the damn wound for
And
you.
she found it. And I'm like, and at some point I had, I was getting frustrated because I'm like, stop looking. Like, you're not going to find anything new on there. But for her peace of mind, she had to continue to look. Because I'd be like, when are you going to finally realize that, this is, that's not me anymore. And I'd say it probably took about a year or so for her to finally get that. And it's interesting though. Even today, still, there'll be an old reflex. Like, our phones look a lot alike, so she'll grab mine at times and just get on there and start looking at stuff. And every now and then I'll have this like brief moment of anxiety, like, what is she gonna find?
Wait, I don't got to worry.
But there's like, then I just laugh. I'm like, keep looking, because you're not gonna find anything,
Right.
other than the fact that maybe I listen to this pastor that all these religious podcasts I might be listening to or articles that I'm reading. So it's like, knock yourself out.
Yeah,
It's a good feeling.
Well, and for me, with Michelle, I immediately, once her and I started dating, self-disclosed everything. Right?
That's good.
And there was never any infidelity, but hey, listen, this is the type of lifestyle I led prior to you. This is what I did. This is what I was doing. And look at it at your own risk. You know what I mean? And so I think that made life much easier for me, because I wasn't going to sit there and worry every time I turned around, like, do I need to be looking at my phone? Can I leave my phone laying here? Here, this is what it is. This is what I did. Here, one of the things that we had to do that caused us a lot of arguments initially, I had my own Facebook page. Here, get rid of that damn Facebook page. Just get both of us a Facebook page, because I don't want to hear this shit anymore. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because maybe there was a girl that she doesn't know that I have a girlfriend now. We've been dating for 5, 6, 7, 8 months, however long. She doesn't know that I have a girlfriend now. And they reach out to me on Facebook. Here, Michelle, I don't even know how to get rid of the page, but get rid of it. It's just easier that way, and that's what we did. And now we have it's Michelle and Frank Termini. Yeah. Or Michelle and I don't even know what the hell it is. Michelle and Frank T, maybe it is. I don't know. Her name's first. I know that. So, but I just straight up just told her, here, this is, the life that I lived for the time I was really here. I had a girlfriend when I was 15. I had one when I was 18. I had one for a little bit when I was about 24 or 25. And I didn't start dating Michelle till I was 30. So you're talking about, this huge time frame where I was single and, did what I wanted, when I wanted, how I wanted.
Yeah. And there was a lot of work we had to do, right? And we had
Yeah.
to just have a lot of conversations, had to learn how to be vulnerable and share my feelings, which was, as a man, was hard to do, to have those kind of conversations and to just get beyond the surface level details on life and that kind of thing. So it was a lot of work. And there were definitely people in Amy's life who were telling her, why are you wasting your time?
And honestly, from a worldly view, it's not a bad question.
It's not. It's a fair question.
It's a very fair question.
It
I mean,
absolutely
and then you
is.
probably even had to think, man, if the shoe wasn't on the other foot, could I do what she's doing?
Yeah, that would, I don't know.
Right. I mean, even now,
Right. You don't know.
you know,
And she had I'll say, she had a get out of jail free card. I know that there are certain points in the Bible where it talks about divorce and not getting divorced. And, she stuck around with me before she knew all this stuff was happening, because as a believer married to a non-believer, she wanted me to get saved. But when all this came out like that, she had the exit like that. God would have said, you're okay to go. Because I was abusing her. Maybe
well,
not,
and it said
maybe not,
that, I think it said that in the Bible that, divorce is bad except for sexual immorality.
yes.
So, and
She had that ticket, it's so easy in the world today to, like you said, it is a fair question. And that's probably one of the things that I've had to learn is how to forgive myself.
hardest person to forgive.
Yeah.
Hardest person to forgive. So let's talk about this. Let's talk about what you're doing now and where you plan on going in the future as far as because don't you have some type of, not only the podcast and the book, but something that you're doing to assist people, men, is it just men? And that battled the same things you battled.
So there's a lot happening, which is good. Obviously got the podcast. I'm actually, at the time of recording this interview, I'm actually heading to Arizona this weekend to go speak at a human trafficking seminar to talk from the demand side of things, from the buyer perspective, and what all goes into that, and how do we overcome the demand in our culture today.
I think what you're doing is something that we need to focus on even more, because all the law enforcement, all the laws, all the punishments, nothing will change unless we change the hearts of men.
That's right.
Period. Case closed.
Absolutely.
When it comes to human trafficking, nothing will change unless we change the hearts of men. And I think you doing what you're doing is attacking just that.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's so I've got 3 or 4 opportunities to go and speak and talk about this in some secular settings, which is actually which is cool and something that I want to keep doing and build on. I have a personal ministry called the Gideon Factor, where it's just about, talking to men and being an accountability partner with them as far as people that are struggling with this, with pornography specifically. And then through The Rock, we're starting up Celebrate Recovery Ministry. By the time this comes out, we'll have launched every Wednesday night. It's an hour-long recovery meeting, basically with Jesus.
Now, when we're talking about recovery, are we just talking about
Anything? So really,
drugs, alcohol, sex, all of it?
It covers. I mean, it says hurts, habits, and hangups is how we talk about it. So it is drugs, it is alcohol, it could be food, it could be codependency, it could be anger, anxiety, sexual integrity issues. You name it. If you got something wrong in your
You got
head,
some weight?
yeah, you'd come into this.
It could be a mind monster. It could be depression, anxiety,
Yeah.
suicidal thoughts, whatever.
Yep, for sure. So that'll be starting up, which I'm very blessed to be in a position to help lead that and stand that up.
And that starts when?
January 10th is the first night, so
How do you sign up for it?
just show up. You don't even have to sign up.
And it's at The Rock?
It's at The Rock every Wednesday at 7:00.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's going to be really. I can already tell God's going to do a lot with that.
Absolutely. And so you said that you're looking to do it more in the secular community. So how are you attacking that?
So I've been fortunate, think about this. This is another piece of the puzzle, right? Of all the churches in the world where I could get planted in, where do they plant me in? the one where the pastor is very passionate and vocal about pornography and sex trafficking. Like, okay, like, so now that is my passion though now, obviously, right? I God gave me a hand up, and I want to help other men experience that freedom from this as well. And so, but I think when it comes to the demand side of things, it's the conversation is, it's for number one, it's the church doesn't talk about this a lot. It's not an easy subject to talk about, and it also convicts probably a lot of people. Like, I'm not going to talk about this because I don't want to have to address it in my church.
Here, I commend you for being able to do it. You know, I think there's probably way more people who would be afraid to admit struggling with sex and pornography than someone who'd be willing to admit I struggle with drugs and alcohol.
Yeah.
You know, I certainly commend you for doing it.
And so I and I try when I go into these secular environments, it is focused on just the mindset of someone who's buying sex and what does that look like, how it got started. You know, I had a chance to, in the fall of 2022, had a chance to sit in on a sting operation over in St. Louis. Myself and another member of the church, David Bennett, and we went over there, and 15 guys got picked up for soliciting prostitution. They got arrested. Nothing ever happened to them, right? But the interesting thing is David and I have had a chance to talk to these guys. And like, you couldn't have put together a better slate of characters because it represented every walk of life. You had the rich man, you had the poor man, you had the old man, you had the young guy, you had the married guy, you had the veteran whose wife died guy, like, and it covered everything. Black, white, Hispanic, all. And the interesting thing was the common theme for all of them was loneliness. And I do think that there's an epidemic of loneliness for men in this world because of social media, obviously, because of COVID and getting separated from people. But I also think for men in general, I do think it's really hard for a lot of guys to talk.
The world is more connected now than it's ever been. And you're saying the common denominator. It's interesting. The common denominator is loneliness in a world where you're connected from everywhere.
Nonstop. But I mean, you're connected by yourself, though. You're not sitting in a room like we are having a conversation. And, you know, like like even from like, and someone, because I suffered from loneliness as a married man, and someone is like, well, how can you be lonely if you're married? Because I don't have a real conversation with my wife, right? I don't, and you know, how can you, like, I have friends, you know, the friends that I had prior to getting saved, we talked about sports and we talked about politics and we talked about chicks. And that's about it. We didn't get any deeper than that.
Superficial.
Totally superficial. I didn't know what was going on in their hearts and in their minds, and they didn't know what was going on in mine. And it's changed though, because now I can just, you know, had coffee this morning with a few guys from church, and we covered the superficial stuff for sure, but then we also got a little bit deeper in stuff that's going on.
Yeah. So you got to speak to these guys that got busted in the sting operation.
Yeah.
After they were already in handcuffs.
After they had already gotten put in handcuffs. Yeah. No, they took them off by the time we got to them, they had taken them off, but we got a chance to sit down with them.
And what was your message? I've been there.
It's interesting. So David and I come at it from a little bit different vantage point. For me, it's sort of like, you know, look, I'm not judging, right? I know exactly how you feel right now, and just try to understand, like, what made you decide, like, why did you do this tonight? You know,
do you give them initially a broad view of your own story? I mean, clearly you can't go into this type of detail, but do you, I mean, because
I try.
Well, yeah, because you would think it would make you I would be more willing to talk to you in that situation if you came to me and said, hey, you know, this is what happened to me.
Yeah, I do try to, like, somehow say, hey, I was there, you know, like I've been a porn addict, you know, I've done this myself, you know, but I just kind of say, hey, there is a way out of it. Right. I try to tap dance around God. If we try to hit him as hard as we can with God if they let us. Right. But David has a different approach because he gets into he's like do you have a daughter? Do you have a sister? Would you want them doing this? He comes at it from a completely different angle, which is also very effective though.
It is. It's incredibly effective because, as a high school football coach, that's one thing I'll tell the kids, like, hey, listen, there is not a coach on this staff that doesn't have daughters.
Yeah.
I can't think of one coach that doesn't have daughters. But, so it's like, hey, we ain't going to let you talk about any other girl. You're going to talk about them just like you would talk about our own kids, So, yeah, that is very effective.
And so we actually, David and I do this ministry at the Rock once a month called the Epic Project. So we get together on Friday night with a handful of other guys, open up the laptops, and we place these fake ads online that were written by former victims and survivors of sex trafficking. We place them on there, and then the calls that come in or the texts that come in go to our laptops. So basically, we're intercepting men at the point of purchase when they're trying to buy someone. And sometimes we have conversations with them.
Really?
Yeah. It's a messed up. Guys are messed up, and I feel, but I have, that's the thing. Like I have empathy for them though, right? Like, cause I've been there. I was messed up.
Yeah.
And I'll say this, and I know people think I'm crazy for saying this, but to me, it's all from pornography. Like that is the poison pill for this culture right now because it's just everywhere.
Wow. God. So have you been able to see someone transform as you have? Have you been able to be a part of that like your wife was a part of it for you?
I can't say that. I don't know. I know I've had a lot of conversations with men.
You've got to plant seeds. You haven't seen anything grow. That doesn't mean it hasn't.
Right. I don't know for sure.
And if you only plant seeds that you're going to get to watch grow, you won't plant any of them.
Yeah, I mean that's what I'm trying to figure out. What do I do with this thing that I have? All right, this gift that God gave me, this story and this escape from that lifestyle. What do I do with it? Because right now the job is just to plant seeds. There's not necessarily a way for me to do long-term follow-up. I'm not a professional. I'm not a counselor. I'm just speaking on my experience. So trying to figure out what is that follow-up and how do I help minister to someone long-term?
Was counseling an important part for you? What was it?
Yes. Yeah, we did. We saw someone separately for a couple months and then together for about a year.
The same person.
Yeah. Yeah. It was huge.
It's a big deal.
It's a huge deal. And, to sit on those, in those meetings and those sessions and with Amy, usually crying in most of them, like it's humbling. Especially when you know how wrong and how horrible you've been. And to see the pain that was caused, but also to know, that's, again, when you learn to forgive yourself, then you start to look at what God has created from that was taken. Like it's always Genesis 50:20, what the enemy meant for evil, God's going to turn it for good. And he has absolutely turned it for good. And to see how, see our marriage today, it would be unrecognizable for what it was, and 6 years ago.
It's amazing. And even though behind the doors of my own obedience, when I am obedient, I'm like, man, I didn't see that coming. You know what I mean? It's like, wow, you never know what's behind it. You just never know what's behind your obedience to God. And then even though I could sit here and tell you that, I still struggle, with like, man, is it really saying to do this? Does the Bible really, and you sit there and you'll read it over and over again. Let me read 5, verses before. Let me look at this in context, trying to talk yourself out of it. And I like me personally, I just struggle so much sometimes with it. And then every time you're obedient, you're like, wow.
Yeah. He really does bless the steps that you take.
For sure.
But you got to take those steps. And I think that's the other thing that I like to point out too, is that, God, he lit up the path for me, right? He said, "This is your path forward. Are you going to take it?" Like, because again, go back to the time this all happened. It was COVID. It's like, I'm going to take away everything you loved in this world. I'm going to take away the drugs, your alcohol, your friends, your porn, the sports that you love to watch. It's all going away for a year. What are you going to do? And so I still have free will. I didn't have to follow those steps. I could have just kept following my own path, my own wisdom or lack thereof. And, but I decided that I was going to follow God, and like I said, it just, it's still hard I still look back and think, how is it possible on April 13th, 2020, I was one way, and on April 14th, 2020, I was different.
Just like that. It's crazy.
I cannot explain it.
Yeah. And there's so many stories like yours, with different, issues where, one word from God or one message from God or someone, displaying Jesus through them, how it just immediately transforms people.
Yeah.
And it's a great story. It's a great story. So we have the Unmasked podcast, which is on Spotify.
Yeah, it's on wherever you find your favorite podcast. You can find it.
And you're how many episodes deep?
85 episodes in. I've been on sabbatical for the past month, but we're getting ready to fire back up.
And they're mostly redemption stories, and it's not all about, around this type of thing. It's various redemption stories.
Various redemption stories. But I do also like to talk about mental health issues and do talk about men who struggle with pornography and ways to combat that.
And then there's your book.
We got the book,
which is really just your story.
Yeah.
And then we have the small group that, let's actually do that. Yeah. And then there's the small group that you're doing on every Wednesday.
Yeah. Yeah. Celebrate Recovery every Wednesday. And, and
hopefully it becomes a big group.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll be real curious to see. This is what I'm telling everybody. I feel like we're going to be really busy to start with. Kind of like it's the new year. So it's going to be like going to the gym. Everyone wants to go to the gym, and then let's see what it looks like in March.
Well, yeah. I mean,
potentially.
I think it'll grow. I do. I think it'll grow as people become more and more willing to open up and admit that there's problems and
yeah. And I do think, there is look at the time we're living in. It's 2024 and where the world is today and how crazy it is. Or if you don't have that biblical worldview, you might be looking at the things that are going on today and really freaking out. And I think there's a lot of people who are going to be looking for some answers in the next year or two coming up. And hopefully this, Celebrate Recovery, right, is truly about recovery, but it's Christ-centered. And so hopefully that message of Christ comes through and gives people the hope and encouragement to face whatever we're going to, walk into, face it without having to deal with, those things that are holding you back.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. Niel, thank you so much. This was awesome.
Yeah, thank you guys.
I look forward to checking out your podcast. I want to read your book, and I hope the group grows for you.
Yeah. I just to give it to God at this point, and we'll see what happens. But I appreciate both of you, and thanks for having me on.
Yeah, thanks for doing it. Thank you so much.